Okay, today we are going to be learning how to use a combination of the pinch and coil methods to make a pumpkin shape. So we are working on jack-o'-lanterns, and so this is kind of the idea of the form. And so I'm going to show you how to quickly construct walls using a combination of pinch and coil. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is all my clay is already wedged. I'm going to start out by pinching out a circular shaped base. Okay, and this whole technique is pretty dang quick. So make sure you're keeping an eye on what's going on here. So I'm going to start out by pinching the bottom of my form. Now what I'm making, I want to be at least 8 inches in one dimension, and so you want to be able to measure that amount. I know my span is 9 inches, so I want to get something that's just a little bit shorter than this distance. So I start out with my pinched base. So everything's nice and wedged. Now, with the other clay that I'm using, I'm going to, instead of rolling coils, I'm going to cut them out. Okay, so this has already been wedged, and I'm just kind of getting it to a long sausage shape so that I can cut my coils out of it and get them right onto what I'm working on. Okay, so I'm going to take this tool, this is the large ribbon tool, and I'm going to use this section of it to just cut out a coil. And because we're going to be blending these in, it doesn't need to be pretty. So I just use this bigger round side to cut that out. And what I do is I lay it slightly inside of the base that I've pinched. So now I'm going to start, and I'm going to use 2 thumbs to blend the inside in completely. And while I'm doing it, I'm kind of compressing it with my fingers because I don't want it to weigh 50 pounds. I want all the base and the side walls to be about the same thickness as each other. So once I have blended the inside with both my thumbs, sometimes I turn it around this way and blend it in that direction. Because what I want to do is I want to get rid of all of the signs of it not being originally that shape that I'm making, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to cut out my next coil. And I'm just going to keep going. This is a very fast way to build a coil pot, which is what I like about it. And as I'm putting these together, I'm making sure I'm not trapping any air pockets. And I'm also making sure that they're nicely blended together. Okay, so I'm going to go around and blend all that together. Blend, 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 blend. And this is a fast building method. It is my preferred building method for any sculptural work in clay. Okay. And this is one of the few times where we can get away with without slipping and scoring. And the reason we can get away with that is because this clay is very moist, okay? You don't ever want to do coil work with clay that is cracked or looks dry in any way. So if you cut it and you bend your coil and it starts to crack, you need to go back and hydrate that clay so that you can slip and score it together. Hydrate that clay so you can cut it into coils and be able to blend without slipping and scoring. Slipping and scoring feels like a really hard and fast rule, but you know, here we are breaking rules. Okay, now once you get a layer done, the next thing we're going to do is use one of my favorite tools, which is a paddle. And so when we're using the paddle, we're supporting the inside of the clay where we're going to be paddling, because if we don't, our clay is going to stretch and get floppy. Now, here's the cool thing. Look at how smooth that gets and how quickly it gets smooth, okay? And so this is, there's the bell. This is the approach that I use to get rid of all of the fingerprints that I've made and get everything nice and smooth very quickly. Now, let's say I'm working on my jack-o'-lantern that I'm making, my pumpkin, and it starts getting too wide too quickly because I'm pushing too much from the inside. So the easiest way to manage that is to just take your clay and rip it and overlap it and blend it back in together. And what that does is it narrows that opening and makes it smaller. And so this is a pretty straightforward technique that works really well. And so I'm just gonna build each layer like I did the first one by cutting out a coil and then attaching it. And when I'm using the paddle, I'm going really lightly and I'm angling it so just a small amount of the paddle comes in contact with it. Now you only want to use the paddle for smoothing things that are hollow on the inside, right? This is for building. This tool doesn't make slabs flatter or anything like that, okay? So I would just keep going on this, continually adding coils to the inside, just barely to the inside edge, and using double thumbs to blend on the inside and then my fingers to blend on the outside. And remember, this only works well if your clay is nice and moist. Sometimes I even take my bag of clay and I flip it over and just start working from the bottom of the bag of clay where I know I haven't used it for anything else and that clay is really nice and moist. And make sure you're wedging so you don't have air bubbles in your clay before you do any of this. Okay, and so our goal for this whole thing is to have it have really nice, even thickness walls. So I would keep going and keep building on that. Okay, and then paddle as I go. All right, so that's how we make the form. Okay, so here's one that I've already been working on because I want to show you a really easy and fast way to make the indentations for the pumpkin form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand inside and then with a wood rib that's clean, all I need to do to make those indentations is take my wood rib and just rock it against the clay and impress it while I'm kind of supporting it on the other sides with my fingers. And then once I have that in, I can take my fingers and smooth it out. This would probably be something I would do a little of as I was building up and then go in and tidy it up and clean it up afterwards. Okay, so that's gonna give me my pumpkin shape. I can even come in here and press this in deeper with my fingers on either side of it. So it's a little hard to see, but inside I have my fingers on either side and I'm pushing in between them to make the pumpkin do that curve in and curve out shape that you want a pumpkin to have. Okay, so that's basically it. Pretty straightforward.